Welcome to the first episode of Dialogue Alley, the show that is mostly about Harry Potter books, book translations, and all other things magical. I'm Eric from Nocturne Erik and Nocturne the Pages on Instagram, and with me is Carly from All the Pretty Books. Hi, Carly.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm well. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
It is. It's a great way to start the new year with this wonderful sunny weather.
Totally is.
Which, after a long, dreary week of clouds and haze and snow up where I live, it is a welcome sight to see Mr. Sun outside.
We had sleet. I think that's kind of cool.
Well, sleet's pretty cool. You don't usually get sleet where you live.
We don't even at all.
Oh, well, there you go. How magical is that?
Very.
Our first episode and something magical already happened to you in the real world. Well, after some discussion, we decided to create this podcast for all of you Harry Potter book fans out there. And we have some great stuff in store for you, not only this episode, but in coming episodes as well. Carly, are you excited?
I'm super excited.
What do you think you're most excited about?
Talking about this topic.
Well, good, because we will be doing a lot of talking. That's kind of the point of these shows, is to talk.
Yes.
I can't promise you that we will stay on track the entire time, but we will do our absolute best to do so. If you've watched any of our Instagram live videos, you know that we are frequently sidetracked by such things as fast food restaurant topics, obscure candy, snacks, and hilarious incidents that happen to us in the real world. So we will do our best to stay on track. How do you think about that? Okay, that's a good plan. So this episode, we're going to go over a few things. So we're going to go over some current events, some news in the book translation world. Our main topic for this show is pretty basic. We're just going to introduce ourselves and explain a little bit more about who we are as collectors, our collection goals, and any other collections we might have at our house. And that is just going to be kind of a brief introduction to ourselves as collectors. I think there are going to be some future episodes where we can go more in-depth to specific components of those collections, but for now we're just going to keep it very basic. Post some photos. We're going to create an Instagram for this show. Post some photos on that Instagram of that book, as well as over on Carly's website, which is
alltheprettybooks.net.
Which, if you haven't been there, it is a fantastic site. There's lots of good information. There are a lot of good projects. So today, the translation of the show is Lithuanian.
The 20th anniversary Lithuanian.
That's true, the 20th anniversary Lithuanian. I also put some stats in on the original one, just so we could kind of get a little difference of them. And then finally, we will talk about what we're reading, as well as maybe some book recommendations, or kind of any recommendations if we're not reading, like new items at Taco Bell, perhaps. I don't know. And then we'll typically close each show with some time for some listener mail. Obviously, being the first episode, we don't have any listener mail right now. So we're just going to sit quietly for 5 minutes when it comes to that time and then end the show. or not.
Okay.
Or I could make some up. I could pretend that we had some, but we don't.
Or not.
All right.
Yeah, you could ask a question that you may want to ask, and we discuss it or something.
Well, there
I
you
don't
go.
know.
So let's get into the news section. So, Carly, do you want to talk a little bit about the news for this week? This is the first week of January, just in case anyone is listening to this not close to release date. So, Carly, what's new in the translation world?
The Taiwanese released their new cover art for the Prisoner of Azkaban. So they've gone through and they have a new illustrator, and they've released books 1 and 2, and they're beautiful. I own them. And they just released book 3, and it's beautiful. I must grab it. It does have a Patronus on the front, which is a pretty typical motif for the third cover, but it's fabulous, and I can't wait to have it on my shelves.
Nor can I. I have the first 2. I think you have the first 2 as well.
I got them from you.
That's true. You did get them from me. And they're not difficult to acquire. You can just buy them online. But to save shipping, I'm kind of buying them 2 at a time. That way I don't have to spend shipping money every month to do this. I'm okay waiting a month. I might change.
Yeah, because they're being released about every month.
Yeah, it's about every month, and it's not. They come really fast. At least they did from Taiwan to the United States.
They have the last couple times, yeah.
Yeah. So the cool thing about these translations, if you haven't seen them, the front of them are all kind of. They're not plain, but they're very white and plain on the front with like a really great graphic or picture on them. But the spine will have a cohesive picture when you put all 7 books together, much like there are some other sets that do that as well that you may be familiar with.
Are there?
Yeah, one of the American ones.
We have an all-white translation with thing on the front for the U.S.?
No, the spine, the images that make a cohesive picture on the spine.
Oh, the images that, yes. The 15th anniversary illustrated by Katsu Kibuishi do that.
Yep, they do that. And then I was thinking of the Ukrainian set does that. People have the Ukrainian set. And there's also a couple other foreign translations, such as the French box set does that.
The the Russian black editions do that.
Yes, they do. So the cool thing to me about these Taiwanese ones is that we don't actually know. I don't think we know. Do we know what the picture is going to be when you
I don't think so.
To my knowledge, I haven't found it. And if it's out there, I don't necessarily want to know because at this point...
I don't want to see it.
Right. At this point, I don't know. I'm just waiting to find out when I put the last piece of the puzzle together.
I'm enjoying, like, the surprise as I see them come.
Which they are...
If I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah, I am too. That's, I mean, part of the, not problem, but one of the side...
Allure?
One of the side effects of the internet is that you can kind of find the answer to everything whenever you want. And there are very little actual surprises anymore. So I'm enjoying kind of being surprised by this picture as it builds as they show up at my house from Taiwan.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like with the Albanian 20th anniversary, not Albanian, the other one, Slovak 20th anniversary. I didn't look at the covers. They were all out there, like you said. I didn't want to see them. I wanted to be surprised when I unboxed them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's very admirable. It's very hard to do these days when it's so easy just to Google something and find the answer. So kind of let yourself be surprised. There are a few great surprises left in the year 2020. Well, who knows? There'll probably be some.
2021, bro.
2021. I meant in 2020. There were, yeah, you know what I mean. That's true.
Yeah.
We're in 2021 now. Hooray. All right. Well, should we move along to the main segment of this show?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to introduce ourselves. We're both on Instagram. Carly's on more platforms than I am. So our information's been discussed a lot. But if this is the first time you're hearing about us, or you just really like hearing us talk about ourselves, we're going to do so right now. So Carly, why don't you start? So the first thing we want to talk about is how you got into collecting and what your current Harry Potter specific collections are, or how that's evolved.
Well, I guess I got into collecting Harry Potter about 10, 11, maybe even 12 years ago, 2009. So was when I decided I wanted to do this. I was already a Harry Potter nerd, if you will. I came into it in about 2001 when I had pneumonia. I was home from school very sick, and my younger sister decided I should watch the first movie, and I didn't want to, so I fought her on it pretty hard. And then I didn't have the strength to get it out of the VCR, so I wound up rewatching it a bunch. And then I asked if she had the books, and she had the first 4. And I was totally hooked. And then book 5 came out. I couldn't wait for book 5, book 6, book 7. I was just on pins and needles. I was so sad that it ended. And then the movies, I was so excited for the movies, even though they're very, very, very different. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a different episode.
Sure.
But they were so much fun to see these people that I'd loved in my head brought to life. And then in 2009, I decided, I have my own house now. I needed to fill it with stuff. And why not fill it with stuff that meant something to me? And I've always been a collector of things, so why not collect something that I really enjoyed? And it was so pretty and so magical, so I started collecting Harry Potter books from then on. And actually, I started collecting Harry Potter screen use things from the first, or not even from the first movie, just from the movies. And I did that for about 6 months and realized that I didn't care enough to research and learn. I kept going back to the books. And then I decided I needed to collect the books, and I immediately bought 2 forged Harry Potter movie scripts, which you should never buy.
No.
For lots
well, you
of
should never buy
but
forged anything.
No, but I didn't know it was forged when I bought it. I didn't, because I'm very, I guess, naively minded. I assume that if people are selling it, it must be true. Just like if it's on the internet, it must be true. And I really thought that so stupidly. It never occurred to me people would try to scam you, but they totally did. Thankfully, someone who I still chat with today messaged me on eBay, and he was like, "Those are forgeries. I'll help you get your money back." And then he introduced me to Peter, who we all know as the Potter Collector. So I've known Peter for quite a long time, and that's who pretty much taught me most of what I know. And then I've since branched out and met other people. And when I first started collecting, I started off with rare and signed things. And the more rare, the better. The harder to find, the better. That still has my heart, and I'm kind of leaning back toward that direction now. And I also do translations. I'm a linguist. I have a master's in linguistics, so I love language. I've traveled quite a bit, and I love talking to people in all these different languages, and I love seeing Harry Potter around the world. It's really fun to go into a bookstore in South Korea and see a Harry Potter book on the shelves. I think it's really fun. So I started doing the translations in 14, and suddenly my translation collection has exploded a bunch. I think my collection is now sitting close to about 1,200 books between translations and rare and signed things.
And those are just Harry Potter related books in that number.
Right. I've had to get to the point where, because I used to have quite an extensive library of all different types of books, because I'm such a bibliophile. I've always read, I'm always reading, whether it's audio, Kindle, and I don't really do much Kindle, but audio, Kindle, or tangible book, I'm always reading things. But it's got to the point that unless it's a very special book, like I love Anne of Green Gables, I'm going to have to put it on audio. I just don't have the space.
Right.
Or really the time. It's gotten to where if I sit down and try to read, I fall asleep.
Right. Well, and I know you do a lot of driving, so audiobooks,
yes,
for all of us that do a lot of driving or commuting. I mean, I guess 2020 didn't involve a ton of that for most people, but
nope.
People that are commuting on a train or a bus or driving somewhere to work, audiobooks are, I think, outstanding. And
really awesome.
now that they're all digital, I mean, I remember going on road trips and they would be on cassette tape. So you'd get like your box of 12 cassette tapes for your road trip, which took up a ton of space. So, I mean, with the resources available these days, I mean, just getting whatever book you can think of.
You had cassette tape audio things?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have all Harry Potter books 1 through 7 on cassette tape.
Wow, I know you can see them on eBay. I've never owned them.
Yeah, that's what I had. And I actually, the only one I got on CD was Deathly Hallows. And even though I got it on CD, I kind of wanted it on cassette because I had all the other ones on cassette. So I think I have it on cassette as well, but it might still be at my parents' house. So I'll have to go looking for that. But I'm looking right at my CD copy right now. It's still sealed. I haven't opened it ever. So
that's cool.
It is kind of cool. It's the Jim Dale version.
So tell the world how you got into collecting.
So I think come from a family of collectors, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I like traveling. I like other cultures. I like other languages. And Harry Potter came to me when I was in 5th grade. So about the same age that Harry is in book 1 was the first time I read book 1. So I kind of felt a connection there just in terms of being the same age as the main character, it sounds kind of corny to say, right? But I mean, I really did feel like, wow, maybe this could happen to me. You know, it's the same age kid.
Well, it gave you somebody to relate to.
Yeah, well,
not many books that I liked were aimed at younger kiddos.
Sure, and obviously I couldn't relate to the maltreatment from his relatives because my family treated me pretty well. Yeah, I couldn't relate to that part at all, but I could definitely relate to the age and growing with the character as I read each book. I was around the same age as Harry was in the books as they were released and as I was reading them. So that was pretty special to me that I was actually growing up with the character. And as you see, the character developing and getting getting more fleshed out and more in depth in the book, I mean, I was doing the same thing in real life. I was, kind of finding more of my identity and going through some life milestones and whatnot. So there was that. So my first experience was with the books, and that just led me to start, I don't know, kind of collecting the American editions of the books. And then one of our family friends from the United Kingdom brought me back book 1 from the United Kingdom, and that was the first time I actually figured out that the cover art was different from the UK version and the US version. Obviously, the UK version coming out first. And that was, I'm 12 or 13 years old. We had the internet, but that's not the kind of stuff I'm looking up on the internet in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So, kind of the cover art got me into collecting Harry Potter books as well as traveling. Whenever I would travel somewhere or someone in my family would travel somewhere, they would just start getting me book 1 in whatever language was available in those countries. And the first few I got were original cover art, which kind of helped spark that collection itch, I guess, that I had even more. So like the first few I got were the UK version, the German version, French and Italian, and all of those mentioned have art that's different than the American ones. Oh, and I got Spanish from Mexico, and that has unique cover art as well. So that kind of started my collection, just the different art, and then people going somewhere that it would just be a borrowed art from like the UK or the US versions. They would still get me one anyway. And it just kind of grew and grew into something bigger, and it started just being, I would only acquire books if I was to go somewhere or someone I knew was to go somewhere. And about 5 years ago, I started just wanting to complete the translations for book 1, and that's when I started, making more connections with other collectors and looking at eBay and Amazon from other countries. My early self would have considered that cheating, but when I quickly realized that to get some of the translations to complete that set, I'd either have to go to Greenland, or
I was about to say you have to go to Greenland or Iceland or the Faroe Islands.
Right. And a lot of the countries are places that people will travel to, right? I mean, most European countries, even some of the more like popular tourist destinations in Asia, people will travel there. But I didn't know anyone that was planning on going to Iceland or Bangladesh, or the Faroe Islands, like you mentioned. So that just kind of changed my shift on that. But that's also when I was an adult and I had more resources at my disposal and decided to just go for it and try to get all the translations of book 1. I think that's awesome. Which is what I have now. So that's great. Except one's still in the mail somewhere. Otherwise, I have them all, and it's super amazing. And it's kind of, it's quite an achievement.
You have them all, right? Malayalam, too, was your last?
That was the last one. Which, I guess also part of the, not cheating, but, buying them online or from other collectors or making other connections, which we will definitely talk about in a future show. I don't want to say the value, but like the scarcity of some of these books, I realized that even if you were to go to this country, it was not a guarantee that you'd be able to walk into a bookshop and find one, because they might be out of print or not even sold in stores anymore. So
like South Africa would be one.
Sure, yeah, like that one is, you could walk into a store and get that no problem. My friend got me one when he was there during the World Cup in South Africa, but if you were to go now, it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, the Afrikaans books have gotten all 7 of them have gotten really hard to find.
Yeah, so that's my collection now. So we'll definitely talk more about that in the future. But why don't we move on to for 2021, this current year, which we hope is a lot better than 2020. However, a lot of a lot of great things happened to me in 2020, so I don't want to be too pessimistic on that. But what are your collection goals, Carly? Maybe like one or two items that you were really hoping to acquire or add to your collection for 2021.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I started off doing rare and signed things, and that's kind of, I went all over the translations, and my collection grew from 30 books, let's say, that were all mostly very rare and most signed, to 1,200 translations, because, just because, the Russian, we'll look at the German, let's say. The German has so many different editions, and it's all unique cover art. And they're fun.
They're super fun. That's one of my most fun books to look at, are just all the different German ones. And I don't even have them all. You have way more than I do, but I have more than I thought I would ever need, and there are still some that I want to get my hands on. So,
well, they're just so delightful, and they're the original illustrator is Sabina Wilhelm, and she just does such a great job. And I like unique covers, and so I would say the Germans make up probably 40 of my books alone, and the French are just about the same. Japanese are about the same. Lithuanian is 14. So that's how you get so many books so fast. So most of these languages have more than one edition. But back to the question at hand, for 2021, I'm going to be going back, I think, to my roots and trying to get more rare and signed things. I would like to get one of the signed and numbered Beatles. I have a cool book that I just purchased that just got here, right as we're doing the podcast. And then I purchased another really cool book that will be shipped shortly as soon as I finish paying for it.
I know we'll probably talk about the Hogwarts Library collection books in the future, but why don't you quickly just let people know what those signed Beetle the Bard books are?
So this is the collector's edition of Beetle the Bard. You may see it was originally issued by Amazon. So Amazon, back I think in 2008, 2009, purchased at Sotheby's auction house a handwritten Tales of Beetle the Bard, and it was handwritten by Jo. She made 7 of them and auctioned off 1. The other 6, I believe, were given to people. Either that or she made 8 and gave 7 and auctioned 1. Either way, 1 was sold. And Amazon bought it. And then they turned that into what we know as the collector's edition of the Tales of Beetle the Bard, which is the leather-bound book that has the skull and the bag of goodies and the extra illustrations and that kind of thing. And 100 of those were signed with hologram, and they were numbered 1 through 100. And they were sent out to 100 lucky people all over the world who had pre-ordered a copy of one of the 100,000. There's only 100,000 made. So they gave 100 of them, a signed book. And I'd love to get my hands on one.
Well, I'd love for you to get your hands on one too, because it doesn't sound like I'm going to be getting one anytime soon.
They're really awesome. I know several people who have them, and I would love to have one.
That's one of
Same with one of the signed Fantastic Beasts. I believe it's what was the second movie called? Not Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but
The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Yes,
Grindelwald.
The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Yeah.
If you donated, I believe it was £2,500 to Lumos, you were sent a signed script copy of that book.
Oh.
From the Mina Lima book.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that. I don't know if it's Crimes of Grindelwald or Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them where they did that with, but I would love to have that signed book. I think it may be book 1. I don't remember now. I think it's probably book 1 where they did that. But either way, if you donated £2,500 to Lumos, you were given a signed and hologrammed copy of that book.
Well, and that leads me to think that if I had more money than I knew what to do with, I'd be able to get my hands on some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, going back to the translations, though, I think one of the things that keeps me going with the translations is that you can have a translation such as the Nepali. It is one of the hardest translations to find. And you can have all the money in your bank account to find this book. But it's not there to buy. So, you can want it. You can have the funds to buy it. It doesn't do you any good because you can't find it.
Right.
Whereas I can point you to several different hardcover, first print, first edition Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone that will either be for sale soon or are for sale now. It's just, $75,000.
Right. Which, you just have in your back pocket for a rainy day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's one of those scenarios where, what does rare mean here? Because it's still rare. The hardcover is still rare. It's 500 copies. But the Nepali is rare and invisible.
Right. So
that's... And it's a very good illustration, I guess, of why rare doesn't equal value, which we'll talk about at a much later date.
Oh, for sure. When we were coming up with different segment ideas for episodes for this to see if we actually had enough to talk about, if people are interested in, and we came up with a lot of different ideas right off the bat. So, hopefully other people find things just as exciting and interesting as we do, because that's what we're going to be talking about. So, there's that. All right, so that's it. So you had your Sign Beetle, the Bard, and your Deathly Hallows, which you actually just got today. Which, huzzah! You haven't even opened it yet.
No, I haven't. So watch it be like a map of the world.
No, it'll be like a Oxford Dictionary from 1992.
I remember when I'd had the hardest time getting the hardcover Polish book 5. And that's the only hardcover Polish book I needed for my 1 through 7 Harry Potter collection.
Yeah.
And I ordered it. It was like the 4th time I tried to order this book. And every time something weird happened. And I opened it, and it was a cat toy filled with catnip. It was a fish.
Which
even on the customs form, it said cat toy, and I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, well, and we've mentioned this before, and we've talked. If you're collecting and you're getting as many things as you get, I don't get quite as many as you do, but you're bound to come up with some mishap that at the time is extremely frustrating, but in the future is extremely hilarious and a story that you like to giggle at. I suppose once you've acquired the item that you were attempting to get, then it becomes funnier, I would think.
Yeah, once I got the book 5, it was much funnier.
Yes.
I will give you that.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess it's me, right? Collection goals. Erik, what are you?
Yes, sir.
What are you looking forward to in 2021? Well, I'll tell you, Erik. I'm at the point now where my collection is, quote, complete of ones that I hate using the word needed because it makes it sound so pretentious. Books I needed to complete my collection set goal, which was all authorized translations of the Philosopher's Stone that were published. So I finished that. So what else is there to look forward to? Well, there are still some versions of those translations that I do not yet have that I would like to acquire. And there's kind of a sense of relief at this point that I know I don't have to get anything else to complete my set. It's already done. So at this point, it's purely a want versus a need. And again, I hate using the word need because we don't really need them, right? But you do to complete a set. So one of the books that I know it's out there and it sells for a lot, but you can also find it for not a lot. It's the Catalan Philosopher's Stone. The first iteration of that book had a very stock image wizard on the front, which it was just like a Google image picture of a wizard. And I'd like that one. I know there might even be one for sale on eBay right now. I'm in no hurry to get that. Once the pandemic ends, I have family in Spain. I'd love to go to Spain. It's something that I would like to be able to come across kind of on my own in the wild at a used bookstore somewhere in Spain. So that's on my list. Something else that I'm always on the lookout for are the advanced reader copies of books 1 and 2. The American books 1 and 2, so Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. I have book 3, which was my favorite because it was printed so early for people to read that there isn't actually a cover art on it and decided on it yet. It's just this black and purple sort of diamond.
It wasn't finished.
Right, it's not done, so it's just
She
this
hadn't
black.
finished it. They pushed up the publication date by a lot because of the lawsuit that happened over Chamber of Secrets.
Oh. Can you explain the lawsuit in 30 seconds so we can stay on track?
Basically, if I remember properly, people were buying the books because Chamber of Secrets came out in 1998 over in the UK. It didn't come out until 1999 here in the US. And so people were buying the books from, maybe Amazon, but I could be wrong because I don't know if Amazon UK was a thing at the time. But they were buying the books from overseas and having them shipped here. So I believe Scholastic got involved and other major book retailers got involved, I believe. I know Scholastic was involved and they sued. And then they pushed up the publication date by a lot for Azkaban. And then starting with Goblet of Fire, all the rest of the 4 books were published on the same day.
In English, at least.
In English, well, of Goblet of Fire in English. Other, translations have to come later.
Right.
And some people may not know, but the translators aren't usually given advanced copies of the book because the secret has to be kept of what was going to happen.
Yes.
So they got the book the same day the public did, which is why some translations, like, say, Spanish Book 7, took quite a while to do. And that is what helped create a black market for an unauthorized Spanish translation of Book 7.
Right. Which, man, I mean, like, people ask why I collect these books and am interested in these translations. And it's stories like that you don't necessarily hear about on the news. But you do hear about, like, Harry Potter Book 6 is coming out and everyone's going crazy. Well, yeah, but you don't hear about these other repercussions, not only in the English-speaking world, but in other countries that have different hiccups with the translation or people that do get an early copy and kind of share secrets that weren't meant to be shared, and then there's lawsuits that happen with that. I guess just when you have such a high demand intellectual property that everyone wants to be a part of, you have to have a lot of people involved in the secret keeping, which is why they decided to just not involve a lot of people and just give it to them when
the illustrators, of course, had to be given, like, they were given the book so they could read and pick out their moments, but yes. It was, like, to be kept in a safe, like, to listen to Mary Grand Pré, who's the U.S. illustrator of the first 7 books, talk about the secrecy that went on. She couldn't even tell her family, from my understanding, that she had the last book. Which is why,
if you've, here's our tangent, but it's related, so don't turn us off just yet. If you've seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada with Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep, and Anne Hathaway's character is instructed by Meryl Streep's character to get the newest Harry Potter book for her kids so they can read it on the train. And she says, but it's not out yet. And they're referring to the, I think it's Order of the Phoenix. And Anne Hathaway has to somehow find some connection with another, either an editor or an author, I don't remember, to get like a really early version of the book so Meryl Streep's kids can read the book on the train. And I mean, at the time, people kind of knew it was a big deal, but like knowing more about the level of secrecy that everyone involved all over the world has to be under the guise of, like, that makes that scene in the movie like even more kind of like a preposterous task that kind of the Meryl Streep character knew was going to be like impossible, and they made it possible in the movie, but I don't think that would really be possible in the real world, which is why she was so surprised when she was able to do it and kept her on as her assistant. So go watch The Devil Wears Prada if you want more.
But was it a real copy or did she just sit and make it up? Because there were people who made up
I don't know.
their own Harry Potter books and sold them under the titles of.
I don't know.
Happen, I think, especially 6, 7 on.
Technically in the movie, it's supposed to be the real one because the guy that she gets it from has a connection with the publisher there. I don't know. I'll have to go rewatch that movie. Actually, I haven't ever seen it. I don't know that I've even read the book. I remember enjoying it, actually. I thought it was a pretty fun movie. Anyway, so moving on. Those are mine. I have the Old Wizard Catalan and books 1 and 2 American for the advanced reader copy. And I'm in no hurry to get that. And I want to get it at a good price. Because, I mean, again, those are out there too. I just
and the US ARC anymore, and has been selling, but it's selling for anywhere between $1,200 and $1,500.
Yeah, and that's I don't want to spend that much, and it's because my collection is, quote, complete at this point. I don't ever want to spend that much money. I don't want it that badly, but I would like to have it if the opportunity presents itself at a price that I'm comfortable with. There's that. All right, and really quickly, why don't we any other collections that you have non-Harry Potter related?
No, not anymore. I used to collect copies. I love Alfred Lord Tennyson's Lady of Shalott, and I used to collect copies of The Lady of Shalott from 1800s or so after it was published, and I got really into Harry Potter. I also used to collect Pulitzer Prize winners, like first edition, first print Pulitzer Prize winners, signed or unsigned, whichever I could find. And it wasn't fun for me anymore. Most of these books I tried to read and I couldn't get into them. And I couldn't do it. And they weren't fun. Like, most of the covers were kind of bland. Not all of them, but most of them. And I really am a big cover art person. I'm a big art person. I love art.
I mean, I think we both discussed that's kind of what got us into some of these translations to begin with, right? It's the art. Like, you see them at the store and you're like, well, that's Harry Potter. I know that. But that's not the Harry Potter that I know. And
well, that's actually
draws you over.
On a tangent, I had stopped collecting Harry Potter, like, full stop in 2012. Between 2012 and 2014, I just full stop. I had some really good signed things. I had some really good rare things. I had about 30 books in my collection, and I just kind of quit looking. I quit buying because I was moving and I was in between jobs. I was still quite young, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back and get a master's degree. You know, all of this early 20s angsty stuff that goes with all of that. So I stopped. And then I saw the Katsu Kibuishi books come out, and I believe those were 2014, and I was like, I love those covers. What are those? And that's what kind of helped me get back in. And I was talking about them with Peter, and he had his own opinions about them, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I must have them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Bloomsbury, you know, we had the Johnny Duddle come out in 2000, I believe it's 2013-14 as well, and the Johnny Duddle are come out of Bloomsbury UK, and we had all of these new covers, like, come rushing out. And I jumped back in. It was the covers, and then I saw the translation covers, and I was like, oh my, I've got to get into this. You know, it was just like a treat for the eyes. Everywhere I look in my book room, even though right now it looks like a bomb has gone off.
Well, you're moving. You're moving, so it's understandable. Right. I'll give you a pass.
And thank you. But everywhere I look, it's like a dessert bar for my eyes.
That's I've never heard that expression, but I enjoy it, and I can definitely relate to that, because that's kind of how in my new house that I just moved into, we set up our Harry Potter book corner, and I love looking at it. There's so much to see. There's so much to
and appreciate.
Yeah, right. That's exactly the word I was going to say. There's so much to see, and there's so much to appreciate. You look at it, and people that think I'm nuts, that I'm friends with, that, I mean, honestly, no one's come to our house because it's a pandemic, but they've seen the books at our other house, and they think it's kind of weird. But when they start looking at all the books and the different cover art and the different special editions, and most people, and I say most, almost all people that have come to my house have read at least one Harry Potter book. So it's an intellectual property that people know, and it's just well known around the world, right? So they can at least relate to it on that level. But they look at it and they start asking questions about it, and like a genuine interest starts to develop with people that initially thought I was an absolute crazy person.
Nutter.
Sure, nutter for doing this collection. So that's kind of cool. And I love talking about them. So anytime anyone has questions, I love sharing just information about the books or stories about where I got them. The other thing we can talk about in the future, I have so many cool stories about where I personally got a book or someone else got a book. People that I work with have gone. The media specialist at my school got me one in Albania, and the story that she told me about how she got this book. It was just hilarious, and we can share that later. But it's then getting other people involved that are like, really, you need me to look for a Harry Potter book for you in Albania? But then
that's how you got your Burmese copy, which is unauthorized. And we'll talk about what that means later, but in another show. But it's still like so cool.
Yeah, it's just the stories behind finding these things are super cool, and the store you got them in, and the vacation you were on, or the trip someone was taking. It's all part of it. It's not just about the actual book itself. It's about the journey to getting them. But that's a lot more info than I think we were planning on going into with that.
So answer me this.
Yeah.
Riddle me this.
Yeah.
Why did we decide to do this? Like, what is your... Because you were the one who asked me. I just wanted to know what your thought... Because I know I've been asked after I mentioned it, like, why are y'all doing this when you already have other things that you're doing?
Why am I collecting the books?
Podcast.
Oh, the podcast.
Like, what?
Well, I like talking about it, and I like talking about collecting in general, but I like talking about Harry Potter. I like talking about kind of the stories behind each translation. I end up learning a lot more about the country and the language because of these books, and you can hear really interesting stories behind, publishing rights or reasons for a translation being made, or kind of like we talked about before, like secrecy breaches, and it's fun to talk about all that with somebody else, and someone else that enjoys that as well, and giggles at my really horrible jokes, and and enjoys hearing about the crazy candy that I just ate from Hong Kong. So there's that. And I didn't mention the other collections that I have. Now I feel like I've been talking for a while, because I asked you that, and you already shared. I have 2 other casual collections. I casually collect Disney attraction art posters for attractions at Disneyland and Disney World. So like the Jungle Cruise, Space Mountain, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Alice in Wonderland, Dumbo. They all have giant posters kind of when you walk into the parks that are really well done. They're all silkscreen art, and it's very like period-esque art. Like it just looks, they're all made to look like they were designed in the 50s or 60s. Really classic looking, and the colors are really bright and cheery. And so I have those framed. I have to hang them up in my basement at my new house. And I also casually collect every Hard Rock Cafe has like an exclusive set of drumsticks that you can usually get by the cash register that have some sort of art depicting the city that the cafe is in. So like if you were to get them in Sydney, Australia, they're probably going to have the harbor or the bridge or the opera house. Or if you're going to get one in Rome, it's probably going to have the Colosseum on it. So just those pairs of drumsticks with those pictures on them. I don't need to collect a whole set. It's just something fun to kind of get whenever you're somewhere, because it is something that you can get everywhere. And like I like that. I like that it's the same type of thing, but they exist all over the world. And I don't even really love the Hard Rock Cafe. I like it. I don't eat there ever, but I just like getting that collection. I know people are like pin collectors. So there's all that kind of stuff. So
I do. I forgot. I actually collect shirts when I go to a new place.
Oh yeah, there you go. Shirts are good. Well, we are running low on time here, so let's move on to our final segment here. We're going to have a translation of the week every week. I don't know if I called it translation of the week. Maybe it should be translation of the day. I don't know if this is going to come out weekly or not. So every show, our plan is to talk about a different book translation, give you a little bit of information about that. The translation of the show this week is Lithuanian. Do you have anything you want to lead off with? Otherwise, I can shout some statistics out at you.
I'm just going to say that I love... So the Lithuanian, it's Lithuanian 20th anniversary, Harry Potter, and the Philosopher's Stone, the first book, is what we're talking about. The cover, this artist, whose name I can't pronounce very well, so I'm going to leave that to Erik. She does amazing art. really, all 7 books are just very elegant, very beautiful. They took my breath away. So naturally I have all 7. And I'm actually then putting the where to buy the book on the page for the podcast. So if you want to buy the book, the link is there.
Fantastic. I would agree. I think the art style is just really, it's unique. That's why I like so many different covers. It is a completely unique art style to that book and to the Lithuanian series, the 20th anniversary series, and it's outstanding. So check out those pictures that Carly will post when you get a moment. I have a couple facts here that aren't super interesting, but I find them interesting. So the original Lithuanian translation with the Marie Grand Pré art, getting all fancy here. It came out in the year 2000, so not too long after the first book actually came out in English. So Lithuanian was pretty on top of it in terms of getting their translation made. It's published by Alma Litera. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Lithuanian is spoken in Lithuania, but it also is a minority recognized language in Poland. I don't know if you knew that, Carly.
I did not.
I didn't either. And it is also one of the official languages of the European Union. So there's that.
Ooh.
According to the statistic that I was looking at on the internet, so it has to be true, right? There is approximately 2.8 million speakers of Lithuanian in Lithuania and about 200,000 native speakers around the globe, not in Lithuania. So that brings the total to approximately 3 million Lithuanian speakers worldwide, which is more than I get.
Pretty big readership.
Yeah. I guess that's more than I thought there would be. Lithuania isn't a huge country. I mean, more than I thought there'd be, like, around the world. Kind of the population of Lithuania matches the kind of population of speakers. But 200,000 abroad, I think, is kind of interesting. So I know one of them actually is married to one of my colleagues. So he's a native Lithuanian speaker.
That's really awesome.
It is awesome. So there's Lithuanian. Check it out. And if you are looking to buy this, Carly's going to post that information there. If you were to give it a $ number, 1 through 5, what would you give it, Carly?
I'd give it a 1.
I'd give it a 1 too. It's pretty easy to get. It's not too expensive. And I'm saying $1 means, like, if you were to go to your local bookstore and buy a book, it would be about the cost of that. It's the cost of a brand new book. And then rarity, it's not rare at all. You can get this thing online right now.
You can still buy it off the publisher website. That's what the link that I've put on my website is actually to.
Yeah, so
it's one of the easier. If you want the translation, I will say get it now. Sometimes translations have a tendency to get, like, they just go away.
Sure. I was going to say, too, if you are looking to start a translation collection or a Harry Potter collection, book-related things with different art, I mean, this would be an easy one to start with or add to your collection very easily. And it's definitely I don't want to say a showstopper, but it's very eye-catching. It's a unique cover, and it's something that you will, if you like Harry Potter, you will enjoy it. It's just that cool.
The first edition Lithuanian has the Mary Grand Pré cover art, which is what we see on the first edition US books. So if you don't want to get a lot of translations, as Erik knows, have the Mary Grand Pré cover art. So if you want to vary up your collection, I would get the 20th anniversary. If you don't have to have both, I would get the 20th anniversary edition of the Lithuanian. It's easier to find than the Grand Pré in most cases.
Sure. And if I was to start my collection now and didn't have Lithuanian, I would be buying the 20th anniversary edition, and I wouldn't even bother with the Grand Pré one. So, because I just do translations, I don't need every single book. So if I had to pick one, I would obviously pick one with the unique art.
Yes.
Yes. And I guess to close out here, if you want to plug anything that you're currently reading, if anything, are you reading anything right now?
I am reading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I'm really bad about rereading things, so this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've reread this book. It is magical. The timeline isn't super linear, and I love that. It's actually one of the reasons why I loved Azkaban is because of the non-linear timeline and the time turner. And I just really, oh man. It's just such a good book. If you haven't read it, pick it up.
Sounds like a good recommendation. I just finished Ready Player 2.
How was it.
Well, good. It's the sequel to Ready Player One, if people are wondering.
Right.
Which was also made into a Steven Spielberg movie, which I enjoyed, but
a lot of people didn't.
It's one of the. I saw the movie first, and it's one of the instances where the book is drastically different than the movie. Like, the plot is similarly structured, but the main events are completely different. And I thought the book was way better than the movie. Book 2 was fun. It's kind of a hard topic to continue on, but it was fun. There's a section where they go to an entire planet that's devoted to Prince. So they talk a lot about Prince stuff in Minneapolis and areas near where I live, which I know about, which was kind of cool. Except when they would get one like detail like minorly incorrect, I'd be like, it's not right. But it was fun. If you liked the first book, you're going to like the second book. If you thought the first book was only okay, I wouldn't recommend picking up the second one. But if you enjoyed the first book, pick it up and read it. You'll at least have a good time. Well, and so this brings us to the listener mail section. Didn't we promise we're just going to sit quietly for 5 minutes while we look at the emails that we don't have?
No, that we don't have yet. If you want to send us a listener email or you have any questions about what we covered today or what you would like to see us cover later, we don't have a mailbox set up, but what you can do is you can email me alltheprettybooks1@gmail.com, and that'll work.
That's the one is in the numeral one, right? Not the word.
Number
yep.
One. Numero
one.
Number one.
Numero
uno.
uno. Sounds great. And where else can people find you, Carly?
They can find me on YouTube under All the Pretty Books. They can find me on Instagram, of course, as All the Pretty Books. Twitter, I'm All Pretty Books, and I'm not very active on Twitter. Twitter is mean, but I'm still there. I'm also on TikTok, but I don't have any videos up yet, but I'm still there.
Fantastic. And I am Erik with a K. You can find me only on Instagram at Nocturne Erik. Knock is in like knocking at the door and you want to come in, or is it Nocturne Alley if you've read the books, which hopefully all of you have if you're listening to this. If not, that's fine. You probably just like us as humans and you're supporting us, which is fantastic. And I'm also on Instagram at Nocturne, the pages where I post doodles of chapter art with, in my opinion, hilarious comic speech bubble things. And I do it for myself, but other people seem to enjoy them too. But I make myself giggle, and that's kind of the only reason I put them out there.
I think they're fabulous. They're okay. So for those who don't know, there's quite a lot of like dad joke humor. And for people who don't follow me or know me, I'm full of dad jokes. I really am full of dad jokes. Really, really, really well done, Erik, is what it means.
Well, thank you.
I just giggle all the time.
Well, I like giggling, especially the way the world is right now. Laughing is...
We need to giggle.
We need more laughter. I hope you've thoroughly enjoyed your last hour or so with us and look forward to some future episodes. I think we're going to set up an Instagram for this podcast, so there should be some news that come out there as well as the supplementary images. You can always check more of those images out at Carly's website, which is alltheprettybooks.net. And I'm
actually uploading them right now.
Oh, fantastic. And so until next time, stay magical, everybody. And we will see you next time. Or we won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Dialogue Alley.
Yes, and I have to say thanks for listening and happy collecting.
Bye.
Bye.